Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to another edition of the Gray Area here on the Black Man Unfiltered Network, simulcasting on the Sparta HQ Network. I'm Mr. Bennett, and hopefully I'll be joined in a minute by my partner, as always, Peter, aka Panayotis, aka the Greek Freak. It's good to see you, sir. What's going on, man? What's going on?
What is going on, Paul? How are you today?
I am well. I am well. Preparing. I guess I'm going on the road again, so I'll be traveling on Tuesday, early Tuesday morning in Georgia for a few days. I was about to open up this warehouse, so so definitely some last minute stuff, and they just want some IT support there. So they said, "Oh, you doing anything next week?" I said, "No, okay, you go." So I'm going down. But other than that, everything is good, and
hmm
so just yeah, just preparing for this trip coming up, and definitely looking forward to getting more travel miles and the whole thing. So looking forward to it. How about yourself?
Pretty good. Pretty decent weekend. Me and the lady went down to what's called Reggae Fest, actually, in Bethlehem on the Steel Stacks. Never been to that. It's actually pretty fascinating, to be honest with you. There's
Nice,
a lot of Jamaican food, Jamaican culture, stuff like that, pretty much.
got
So
you.
had maybe one or too many drinks, but I'm not gonna talk about that.
I hear you. I hear you. For everyone who's joining the show tonight, just make sure you hit the like button. Certainly, as you come in, consider becoming a subscriber both to the Black Man Unfiltered Network as well as the Sparta HQ Network. So we appreciate support that you give us. If you want to drop a Cash App or Super Chat to the show, you see scrolling at the bottom of the screen, Black Man Unfiltered is the Cash App, but you can also drop Super Chats to the show as well, and anything that you want to give to us personally. Scrolling below are our individual Cash App. So good to be here tonight. And so we took a week off, kind of refresh a little bit. And so definitely gonna get into a new stream of shows. Gonna be dealing more with, I guess, relationships, more family sort of oriented. I think we were getting a little too political last few shows, so things kind of get out of hand a little bit. So we just want to scale it back a little bit. Sometimes we kind of have a policy here. We try to stay as much as we can from politics and religion topics directly. People have strong feelings about those kind of things, but certainly want to focus on more, I guess, on the ground issues, so to speak. That people deal with. But tonight, I want to talk a little bit about, again, the idea of blended families or step families. And it's interesting to me because we had a show on the Hangout a few days ago, and it dealt with like the best TV dads of all time. And, everyone kind of gave their rankings. And actually, my number one TV dad was actually Mike Brady from the Brady Bunch. So I'm definitely dating myself here a lot. If you guys remember growing up, the Brady Bunch, that was certainly one of my first forays into looking at a step family. And I'm sure at the time it was fairly new because certainly television at that time it always dealt with these it always dealt with these sort of nuclear families. But yeah, this was my foray. So again, if you guys remember the bag race, sack sack race, with the family here, you had Mike. He had three sons, and Cal. She had three daughters, and they got together. You had Alice and whatnot. And it's just a little tidbit before the Brady Bunch actually would inspired the Brady Bunch was a movie that came out in 1968. It was called Yours, Mine, and Ours, which was the inspiration for the Brady Bunch TV show. So you had Lucille Ball and Henry Fonda, and they had all these kids. I think she might have had like 8, and he had 5 or something like that. And basically, just the zaniness of trying to manage all of that. But at the end of the day, they wound up getting married. Certainly at the end, but that was the catalyst for the show. And the Brady Bunch was certainly a very successful show, and they had spin-offs and all kinds of TV shows and stuff in the 70s, all kinds of crazy stuff they did. And, but yeah, it was a very popular TV series and one that I appreciated much. And Mike Brady, like I said, I listed him number one as my number one TV dad. Number two is James Evans. So before people start taking their black card away from me, number two was James Evans from Good Times. All right. But certainly this was something that's obviously started to permeate people taking the taboo off of, okay, look, if you had kids from another relationship or whatever, that you were somehow no good, or whatever the language is. Now it's interesting, certainly in the last few years the idea of becoming a stepfather or stepmom or going into a blended or step situation has certainly gotten some talk over recent years. There's certain voices out there saying it's a bad deal. You shouldn't necessarily go into it. But certainly you have people who are starting to enter these types of relationships, and it's certainly something that it's worth talking about. Is it still worth it in 2026? And if you do decide to enter a relationship like this, what are some of the things that you have to be mindful of? Because statistically, and I have some stats I could show, but I don't want to bore people right now. But you got 40% of marriages in the U.S. are blended, and 16% of kids are growing up in blended households. So that's just a reality of the day. And so this is definitely something that people are doing with and without some success. Just like you have people who are not going into these. Divorce rates are certainly significant. We did a show on divorce some time back, and so certainly divorce statistics are high. They're not as high as the 50% that everyone's talking about, but certainly they're significant. So again, whether you're going into a blended situation or if you're going just from scratch, trying to build a situation, there's still work that needs to be done. But Pete, just certainly, just give me your opening salvo. What's your thoughts on, again, blended or step marriages, relationships, and whatnot, where there's existing children, and your experience in terms of navigating that? And so yes, just give your perspective, your opening. I haven't had that experience, so I'll be talking from certainly my perspective, but I want to hear yours because I think you have a bit more experience with that than I do.
I do actually. Obviously, I've been in multiple different relationships like that. But I want to speak to my serious relationships, like the one I'm in right now. So obviously, going into this relationship, my lady had two kids, two twins, one boy, one girl. Going into it originally, I didn't think anything of it. I think it was just like that's gonna be the kids. They're gonna be around. That's it. But I was fucking wrong, and you can document that. I never, I don't usually say I'm wrong on the hair, so I'm gonna be in it. I'm wrong because now they're becoming a part of my family, my everyday lives, to the point like even her son is telling people he never had a great relationship with his father.
Mm-hmm.
So that was also a factor. I'm showing love and care and all that stuff. He's calling me dad at this point. Not literally dad, but to his friends, like, oh, he's my father, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
I know there's a lot of red flag for people, but I'm cool with it. She's cool with it. He's cool with it. So that, every relationship is different. If you can make it work, why not?
Mm-hmm.
Because you might help a young man or young woman or a child right out there who didn't have the love and care, or whatever the case is, whatever the situation that family was in, you can make it better. So it's a I won't say a double-edged sword, but it is in a way. If you do it right, it can work great. Like a brain bats, they did it great. They did it right.
Mm-hmm.
They made it work. But you have to make it work, both of you guys.
Yeah.
You guys have to let the cards out, have to be on the same page. What are we doing?
Yeah.
X, Y, Z is great. I know a lot of people who got raised by their stepdads or stepmoms, and a lot of them saying, "He's not my dad. He's not my stepdad. He's my dad." Doesn't mean you have to call him dad.
Yeah.
But if you do, that's fine too.
Yeah.
It has.
And you have and you certainly have examples that I know. Shaquille O'Neal, who I know is I think from New Jersey, he credits his stepdad as I think his stepdad was in the military, and he certainly credits him in terms of raising him and whatnot. So we see examples all the time of people raised by their fathers that certainly turned out to be around. I think we had a former president, I think Gerald Ford. I think he was right. I think his initial dad wasn't the greatest, but his stepfather that married his mother was certainly he gives a lot of credit to him being the person the person that he is. So again, it's like anything else, it's a mixed bag. Like I said, you could be starting fresh. Now, I know me, I was pretty intentional about what I wanted early on, in part because I knew who I was. So again, I'm still in my 20s, And one thing that I knew for sure is that I didn't want children right away in a relationship. In fact, I had women literally hang up on me when I was like, because they kind of put we're having a nice conversation, we're talking, we're vibing and everything, and then they came up in the conversation that she had kids, and I was pretty clear on that. Look, I wasn't looking for kids at that time, and it had nothing to do with her or the child that she had, but the idea was I was not ready to be a father at that time. I wanted a significant amount of what they call dink time, right? Double income, no kids. So I wanted to live in the dink phase for a period of time and get to know my wife in a wifely situation. Now, we've argued back and forth in terms of the difference between cohabitation and marriage. And I'm very much a believer that, I think there is a difference between marriage and just cohabitating with somebody. I wanted at least a couple years because, again, my courtship was very short. From our first date to marriage was 10 months. So I wanted to live with her in married life to kind of get a sense of, do I want to procreate with this person? And so that was one. I wasn't ready to be a father yet. I wanted some marital time alone to make sure this is the right call of the decision before we decide to bring children into the world. And I am very adamant about the fact that I think children should be wanted. And I don't want to be going to a situation that's strained. So those were my reasons for opting out, not going into a relationship. I mean, certainly there was plenty of women out there available who might have had 1 or 2 children that I could have gone into a step situation. And I know a mentor of mine, he married into a step situation. Again, now mind you, he's also older. He was well into his 40s. And that's another thing too. The older you are, the more likely it's going to be that you're going to encounter someone of the opposite sex who may have children already from a former marriage. What's that?
You have a very good point. Like, I'm in my 40s, and to find a woman who has no kids is nearly impossible.
Yeah.
In the group age I'm looking for.
Yeah.
So it needs time to think. You want to get in that into that responsibility, and I said, yeah, I was. Once I got to know the woman I'm going to be with, and I realized she's a damn good fucking woman, and it's kind of hot too. So I get two, and the kids are respecting me, and they're coming to me for questions.
Yeah,
I think I got 3 strikes on that one personally.
Yeah,
it's like me.
Yeah. Now you share something with me, and I hope you don't mind. I share a little bit what you were saying. This is something that even I didn't know you were cultivating this for some time. This wasn't something that you just kind of threw yourself into. Correct. You took your time with this one to make sure that things were gonna go right, because I believe you've been in previous relationships where there were also children involved, but this one you sort of took. Wouldn't say a different approach. You can kind of break it down a little bit more, but can you talk about how this process was different from your prior process of dealing with women who had children already?
Yeah. So, okay, let's back it up all the way. Let's
go
back a year now. All right. So me and I don't want to put her name out there because I don't want
to. That's fine. Yeah.
Mrs. Spartan. Let's go with that for tonight. Mrs. Spartan.
Madam Spartan. How about
Mrs. Spartan, Madam Spartan, whatever. The other half of Spartan. Let's put it that way. All right. We both agree to one thing: online dating doesn't work. Even to this day, we both agree that it doesn't work. We got lucky because we wanted the same thing at the time. We didn't realize that we thought of when we started talking. I said in my same elimination process. I got to talk to you online first. I got to text you. She didn't have an iPhone. She had an Android, and I didn't. I had an iPhone at the time, so that we couldn't FaceTime really. But we at least, exchanged some pictures, and we talked a lot on the phone before our first date. And I'm not gonna lie to you, and she knows how I feel about this. And the first time I saw her, I went like, "Wow, her pictures doesn't justice. She's pretty smoking hot." But I took a different approach this time. I keep it on the D-low personally, not because I was in shame or anything. I just want to make sure this was going to be something that it was long term or something I can share with the public, because people get involved in your relationship easily, bro, and
Mhm.
sabotage you.
Mhm.
I've seen it happen. You probably seen it happen multiple times, not to you personally, to friends of yours.
Yeah.
Your friend says this and then rumors. No, I didn't want that. I just want a quality time with my missus and see where this goes.
Mhm.
And when it really hit me, it hit her around December, her feelings. So, and she's gonna argue back and forth. She's like, I was the first one to say I would love her. I'm not gonna argue that.
Mm.
She really felt some kind of feelings for me around the beginning of the year. I didn't feel more. I knew it was feelings there, but I didn't know how strong.
Mm.
Till about 2-3 months ago, she went down to North Carolina to see her parents, and she goes to a concert. And I'm like, you ever get the feeling when your girl's gone, you're depressed, sad, and that's all you can think of? You know what I'm saying?
Right. Right.
And I realized I'm like, fuck, I'm in love with her. And I was talking to her over the weekend. She goes like, where all this sweetness? And she calls me Mush. That's her nickname for me.
Mhm.
And it just from there we just skyrocket to what it is now. But we took our time. I really slowed this one down.
Mhm.
And that's what was a lot of people's concern, always rushing, like the little people that knew about us and her side. I'm like, we're not rushing it, we're just taking our time. But I also believe you take your time in your own speed. What's taking time for me is different for you and versus somebody else.
Right.
So that was the fact. Like, I didn't meet the kids officially to November. I didn't start hanging out to them to about 3-4 months ago. So
And you said again, this whole process started about a year ago.
Correct.
But it was only 3 or 4 months ago before it went. Right.
Yeah.
But then you just started meeting the kids again a few months ago.
The first time I met them was in November. So she wanted to take me to TSO, Trumpet Orchestra, for my birthday.
Mhm.
December. I'm lying to you because my birthday, if you remember, towards the end of the month.
Right.
So I met him, and it was fun. It was like I cracked jokes with him. We were laughing. We started our relationship, me and the kids, on a really good note. When they call, I say hi to them, so like that. But I never really got to hang out with them as much to the last 4 months, the last 3-4 months, and I'm spending like shitload of time with them. Like when I'm not working, I'm there. If after work, I'm there. Not obviously every day because we have a little bit of 45-minute distance between us. But
Right.
when I have free time, is open schedule. That's where I'm spending time with. Before we're on the air, I was actually at their house, hanging out.
Mhm.
So we're spending a shitload of time, and my son has gravitated to me. That's why I call him at this point, because that's how our relationship is.
Mhm.
Again, I can't tell you how to run your relationship. That is
Right.
up to you. But I can give you my examples. And my example has been blooming to this beautiful flower that we didn't know.
Mhm.
To the point the kids are coming to me about problems. Like my daughter's coming over about her boyfriend's problems. All right. I'll talk to her about it. Like, not much good. I'm not good advice on that because they're just out of high school and they're both young and stupid. You know how it is. We were there. Her son needs more focus because again, he was collected by his father all these years. He didn't give a shit, and that's his prerogative.
Mhm.
But now that I'm there, I'm showing him, like today he needed help fixing the pool a little bit. He got excited. He bought a little a 10x3. It was nothing, it's literally up to your chest. It's like something you sit down, have a beer, relax. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
And he needed a chance to filter. He couldn't figure out how to screw something on because again, his father did not show him this stuff. I literally got on my knees and I told him, listen, pinch this, push it in, tight it, move it around. And it was like, in about 5 minutes, it was fixed. And he was so happy to show him that. But the one that showed my age was when I brought the Super Nintendo over because I like having game nights with the kids so we can get along, and get better at each other, whatever, right?
Mhm.
He goes to me, "Do you play online with Super Nintendo?" I went like, "This is before online, dude. It's like Super Nintendo didn't have online."
Right.
He was asking me about Call of Duty on Super Nintendo. I'm like, no, this doesn't exist. But those are the moments that makes you laugh. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
the fun times, even the bad times.
Hmm.
We have good bad times.
Yeah.
You know this as a father. How many good times you have and how many times?
Oh
Are you
yeah.
going to change that for the world?
Yeah. No doubt. No doubt. Now, some may question or be sort of taken back by again the terms that you're using at this point. So again, you're not married yet, but again, you're comfortable with the terms of son, daughter, him calling you dad, those kind of things. Even though you and Madam Spartan haven't walked the aisle yet, or what have you, civilly or in the church, or however you guys want to do that down the line. And some people may question that a little bit, as far as, hey, is that rushing too fast? But and again, like you were saying, I think that again, every relationship is going to be different. I know it's interesting. I shared a story. My daughter is long term. They've known each other since freshman year in college. A couple years ago, he tried to call me dad, and I told him, "Look, I like you, but you don't call me dad until I walk my daughter down the aisle and I give her to you. That's when you call me dad." Like I said, I love the kid. I'll just put it out there. If he asked me tomorrow, I want to ask for your daughter's hand in marriage, I'd say yes. And I think my wife loves him, my daughters love him, they adore him. Certainly if he was thinking he's ready to make that move and transition, I wouldn't have a problem with it, and I'd be happy to take him on. He gets along with both sides of our families. He's just one of us. Sort of at this point, but the dad title you don't get until until you put a ring on it and until you walk down the aisle. But that's me. But in your situation, so just talk about how how that works in your situation, and how you're comfortable with that.
I'm going to backtrack a little more again. So when she was on vacation, we were talking, and she knew my feelings were serious, and she knew her feelings were serious. We already had that conversation about when my lease expires, us to moving in together. And we both sat down with the kids and we talked. I'm like, listen, I'll be honest, you guys, me and your mom are getting serious. We are talking about moving in from a year. Their grin were so big. I'm from happiness.
Mhm.
I'm like, I looked at her like, did I spell something wrong? Is it something in my teeth? And she goes like, no, they're happy. You're like, shut up, idiot. She goes to me, don't spoil the moment. And so when we're talking, on vacation, and we, I don't remember how the conversation came up, but the conversation came out about, okay, if we're gonna move in, if we're gonna go, we're doing this. The kids are gonna call me kids. Where are we going with this? And the marriage talk came out, and
Mhm.
I agreed with you. We should have that conversation once in a while. I posted about that before.
Mhm.
Um, I disagreed with you with doing it after a few months.
Right.
So I might put my own mouth in that one.
Got you.
And shut up. But we had that conversation,
Right.
and that's why my situation works for me, because we know, okay, if I got on one knee with a ring in my hand right now and tell her, hey, would you marry me? The answer is going to be yes. Absolutely no question about it.
Mhm.
So this is why we're in that type of relationship, because it works for us.
Yeah.
Again, I cannot tell, Jeff, John, Mike, Peter, and Paul how to run. You got to do you guys. Simple as that. But if you want to use me for example, I'm an open book. I tell you what works for me, what doesn't work. And
Mhm.
trust me, I fucked up in the process. I'm not gonna deny it. The good thing about this relationship versus the past relationship, I don't argue. We talk. I've raised my voice twice in a year, almost a year with her. Same for her. That's a pretty good track record, I think. Don't you think, Paul?
Oh yeah, definitely, definitely.
So the biggest thing I took out of this relationship, if I have to share it to anybody, talk, don't yell. Yelling doesn't get anywhere. You're just going back and forth. Yeah, at this point, it's like two dogs. And the biggest factor, and she's gonna hate me saying this, is she always used to tell me, "My dog is so vicious. He bites everybody's head off. Blah 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 blah. Whatever." I walked into the house. He came up to me. And she goes, just give him a cookie. He'll be fine. He needs to sniff you or whatever. Just give him a minute. He might, if he starts growling, let me just get in the middle. He won't bite you. I go, give him the cookie. He jumps his paws on top of my shoulders. I start petting him. And I looked over. I'm petting her. I go, vicious, huh? He's very vicious. He's licking my face and everything. Her words came out. Looked at me and goes, shut up. And walked away. And probably that was another factor with me and her, is because dogs can tell who you're going to keep, who you don't keep.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Gotcha. And do you think that the fact that the kids are older, because like you said, well, like I said earlier, the older you are, it's going to be harder to find anyone, man or woman, who doesn't have kids from a previous relationship. I think both of the kids are teenagers, correct?
Correct.
So if they were like under, let's say, 8 years old, do you think that might have do you think that might have made a difference in terms of, again, going into it more so because I've like I said, a friend of mine, a mentor, he married, but the kids were grown. He had 2 sons and she had again some kids, and it's interesting, at their wedding, like they took it to the standpoint that in the wedding, not only did they her and him exchange wedding rings, the kids exchanged wedding rings. So like they were all in because they were saying, look, we are marrying, this family is marrying. So they got rings, like a family ring, almost like a family crest kind of thing. That was part of the ceremony. So everybody got a ring similar like this. Everybody's sort of coming together. And, they just wanted that kind of symbolism. They didn't even want this title of stepchildren or that anything kind of like that. They wanted something, much more spiritual, much more connected, much more meaningful. And so in their ceremony, that's what they did. And that was the only time I saw that done. And, obviously they're still married to this day, and the kids obviously are much older now. They're probably, kids approaching 40 at this point. But certainly at the time, that was the first that I saw that, again, it was kind of like, the family is marrying, not just the man and the woman that was marrying. So that was an interesting thing. But again, but I'm wondering, and again, certainly if you're in the chat, see some interesting comments in the chat. But if you're there, does that make a difference for you? If the woman or the guy that you're with, if the children are teenagers, does that make it harder or easier for you to potentially date that person? If the children are still babies, does that make a difference? If the person, the type of why the person's in that situation, if they were divorced, or if she was a widow, or it was just a baby daddy situation, whatever it is, how do all those factors, certainly for you guys in the chat, how would all those, if anything, make a difference in terms of your decision to enter a relationship like that? And then also, one of the things that Peter said, that again, he was dated her for several months before he met the kids. And that's another question I would have for the chat. When do you think may be a good time to meet the kids? Would you agree with his waiting several months before meeting the kids, or would you do it much sooner? So I'm just curious, certainly from the chat, if you guys want to opine in. Again, as always, we say keep it respectful, certainly in the chat. Like I said, I found some very interesting comments there so far, but as, all we ask is just keep it decent and just keep it respectful, respect everybody in the chat, and we'll be fine. But I'm just curious about that as well. So Peter, so would that have made a difference, you think, if the kids were very young, still impressionable, and versus having teens and whatnot? Because I think certainly I would have done better anyway. I think with a teen situation versus a young child. It's funny, even with my own kids, I became a better parent as they become teenagers. I wasn't as involved in my kids' lives when they were super young, because they did a lot of girly stuff, and teacup parties and sleepovers and things like that. And I'll provide the means and the substance for stuff. It's like mom and the aunties, y'all to kind of take care of that. But I really started to kind of get close to my kids as they became teenagers. And, just having, daddy-daughter dates with them and taking them out. In fact, I was just out with my daughter yesterday. We went to the gym and we went, had some lunch afterwards. So I got more comfortable with fatherhood the older my kids got. So I think I could handle a older child situation more so than a younger one. But what would be your perspective on that?
I would say no in my situation. I'll tell you why. Because you have to deal with the other half of the kids, the father. Because the father, if he's a father, wants to be in their lives, and let's say let's say it was something in marriage and divorce, and the custody is 50-50, he has to come by the house, drop him off, and I got to deal with the son of a bitch, and I don't deal with that shit really well personally.
Yeah.
That's me. Again, everybody's different. Like there are other guys that like say, listen, I know I'm not the father, but when they're around me, I'll be a great job. Yeah, I'll do that. I'm not gonna deny that, but I won't like the guy. I won't even want to speak to him because if it's a reason your exes. So yeah, I'm good.
So you don't necessarily buy into the co-parenting situation. That's not like a requirement where you got to be on good terms with the dad, and because a lot of people put that up as well as like you got to be on good terms if the father's around and if he's involved. Now in this case, again, the father of these children is not necessarily around, or he's not really an issue, but in cases where the father
he's not in the picture at all. Like he doesn't give a shit.
Yeah.
With the daughter, is only time they get talk is when she wants money. That's all he was good for.
Oh, yeah.
And that's why we had a conversation. Sometimes girls are easier than boys because girls usually like how much you need. Very simple. Versus boys, you have to actually open your mouth and have a conversation.
Mm-hmm.
So let's keep that in factor.
Gotcha. Talk about the has there been conversation about this? I know they're teenagers, but obviously, until they move out, get their own place or whatever, there's rules, there's things of that nature. What is your approach to discipline? Because a lot of people, again, you heard, surely in the manosphere space and whatnot, and guys were saying, well, look, if I'm going to be a stepdad, I need to be able to raise the kids as if they were my own. If you believe in corporal punishment, which again I don't, but I know some are like, look, if I need to whip your stepchild, will I be allowed to do that? And you had a lot of ladies who were saying, well, no, you can talk to my kid or whatever, or put him in timeout or whatever, but no, you can't whip him and things like that. And a lot of guys were just stepping off of that because, it's like, look, if you believe in such a thing, if you believe in corporal punishment, if they were your own kids, you would have the right to discipline them the way you want to discipline them. But in a step situation, sometimes there's parameters, again, especially if there's another, and this is why I think for some people, they kind of shied away from it, because the idea is it's like, look, if you are if you're the original dad, right? And your ex marries someone else, and let's say if you weren't a believer in corporal punishment, but this new father is. Now, what are you going to do in that situation? So I always found brothers kind of, they kind of get a little twisted and not, because they were like, well, look, if anyone's going to be in my home, they got to abide by my rules or whatnot. And if I believe in discipline or whatever, then that's it, because it's my house and I need to be the head of my house and all that. But if the situation gets flipped where the kids are in another house, then you want to be like, oh, well, me and that new father need to have a conversation. And, you're basically trying to tell that father now how to raise your kids. And that can create some conflict also, because, again, the other guy be like, look, like, say you had a chance. And you're no longer with your ex anymore. She's mine now, and the kids are I'm running things the way I'm running them. You're not going to tell me a thing. And that creates a lot of conflicts as well, where again the the dads, if you will, the stepdad and the biological dad don't get along, and that can cause a lot of, depending on how far they want to take it. If the original biological dad wants to create issues, that can cause a lot of problems in the relationship as well. How would you navigate a situation like that?
That's a hard answer because I don't have the answer for that personally, because I'm not
Okay,
in that
that's real.
situation.
That's real.
So if I was in a situation, I'll put it this way: the way I go about discipline, and I had to have a couple conversation with my son, is having a conversation, explain to him what he did wrong, and explain to him stuff like that. My from if he does it multiple times, then I have to go to the extreme. Simple. Manual labor is a great discipline action. Like I don't. I'll give him one of the old school. You probably remember the old school grass cutters that had no engines on them.
Yeah.
I don't know what they're called, to be honest with you. The big,
No, there were. I mean, there were certainly lawnmowers, but again, there was just really or grass cutters. But obviously, technology, they put engines on them at some point in time when they became available. But yeah, I would say grass cutters and lawnmowers back then.
Yeah, the grass cutter. I'll have him cut the whole 5 acres with that damn thing. Think of how long he's going to be out there and not hitting his son.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he's going to be doing that ever again afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I look at it. And they're too old for corporal punishment and all that kind of stuff. And that's not my response. And that's one thing you should never cross the line, is because, and if I was on the other foot, if somebody is disciplining my kids and they use corporal punishment, I probably want to rip their heads off, to be honest with you. So I wouldn't want to do that. Now, if the kids were younger and my lady felt like she had to use corporal punishment, that's a different story. That's her biological kids, obviously.
Right. But like I said, that's the conundrum that a lot of both biological and stepdads find themselves in. So again, like I said, on the one hand, you got the stepdad asserting authority, my house, my rules, and that sort of thing. And again, the wife, she might even be compliant with that situation. It's like, yeah, you're the head of the house, and you discipline the kid how you want to. But then you have this biological dad who, and again, depending on the state you're in, well, I think in most states still, you do have some rights. Or you can petition, or again, at the very least, just make things very difficult. And so what do you do in those situations where you have this father? And again, I think a lot of that also depends on the age of the kid. Now, I do believe in this. Let's say if it is causing concern, and if it's causing stress, I may want to have a conversation with the wife, depending on the age of the kid. If the kid is 12 and older, then I may start to ask some questions that would it be better, especially if he has a relationship with his son, that maybe he should go and live with the biological father at that point. Because, if that's going to be a source of consternation, if he's so passionate about he wants to be in his kid's life, then, that might be the conversation to have with the woman. So again, that's another, kind of scenario, because a lot of these things, shout out to Lunatic Librarian in the house tonight, certainly said he couldn't be a stepdad. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things that have to go right. You have to be with the right woman, and from everything you've told me about, certainly Madam Sparta, she definitely seems to be very open to you being in her children's lives, doing what you need to do. She's not trying to check you or protect her kids in certain ways. She's letting you kind of, step in and do what needs to be done in those situations. But not everyone not every woman is willing to do that. And I can certainly see, and again, I'm glad that you took your time with it, because that would be a red flag for me, certainly. If we're having issues, and if I'm seeing things with her kids, and I think I may need to step in, or to have a conversation with you, but you're going to protect them over what's right, then I'm looking at you differently. And I may have to say, well, maybe this wouldn't work because, we may have some values that are different when it comes to how to discipline or how to rear children. And I think that certainly if you're going to go into a dating situation with someone who has children already, I think those things need to be outlined, pretty early. So if I'm going out with you, I know you have kids. I'm going to get into that. It's okay. So what is the relationship to their father? I want to know that. I want to know, what are your views on discipline, on corporal punishment, on rules of the house. Now, I think those things have to be sort of laid out in ways that are open and are transparent before you get too connected to the woman. Because like you said, when you met her, she was like, yeah, she's hot. And a lot of times some feelings kind of get in the way before the practical conversations that need to be had. Or if you meet the kids too early and you start forming attachments early, but then all these other issues start coming out when you start having these conversations, and then it's like, oh, well, what do I do now? I don't want to lose her, or I have a thing for the kids or whatever, but there's these problems there. And some things you may just try to sweep under the rug because, again, you got those feelings involved. Like I said, I knew myself very early. And when I was 26 years old, I knew right then and there, I do not want to be a father at this time. I needed about 3 years. My first child was born in 2000. I got married in 97. My first child was born in 2000. So it took us nearly two plus years before it was like, okay, we can get this process started. But I had to build up to that. So again, I think for a lot of people, they might be afraid of having the conversation, or you're liking someone to a degree that you don't want to kind of break ruin a good thing. But then stuff comes up later, and there's conversation. I've seen people recently where they move in together, or they have, get married or whatever, and then there's certain situations with the kids and whatnot, and it's like, they're not ready for this. And I'm like, where was the conversation earlier on? Or were you honest with yourself about how you really felt about the situation? Were you just saying what the other person wanted to hear because you felt you had a good thing going on, you didn't want to ruin it, or you didn't want to start over with somebody? So I think those are crucial. And like I said, I would definitely put those early on in the conversation before I would want to proceed with that. But it seems like in your case, again, you seem to, from everything I've heard so far, she's a bit of a unique person. I wouldn't call her rare, but she's a unique person in that she is giving you some liberties to do things in ways that I've seen a lot of women who will be a lot more protective. But you can speak to that.
She, obviously at first it wasn't like that. At first, she had to fill me out, see if my intentions were good or bad, and all this stuff. And when we did, she realized, okay, he's not that bad guy. He knows a little bit what he's talking about. Obviously, I had good teachers over the years. And every time I did talk to her son on the phone, before I started hanging out with him, I gave him good advice. And I gave her good advice. Like, listen, she goes, I'm going through this, but I don't know what to do, whatever. I go, simple, do it X, Y, and Z. She goes, I didn't think about that. But you're thinking as a woman. That's why your daughter was a little easier versus your boy. I'm thinking as a man for a boy. And and then she started connecting the dots. And when I started hanging out with him, and she saw how he listened. Simple thing. I asked him, like, all right, one day I was coming in the house, I had a case of water in the car. Like, hey, but can you bring the water in? Yeah, sure, no problem. Threw in soda, brought it in. And I looked at her like, yeah, he respects his elders. So we started talking more and more. I, gave him more. He gave back. The kid is the sweetest kid in the world, to be honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
But that scares me too, because the sweet and nice kids get always burned on the streets. That's why I'm trying to build him up a little bit with a little thicker skin.
Yeah.
And that's the only thing I would say. He's a sweet, great kid.
Mm.
he's too sweet sometimes because he needs a little thicker skin.
Yeah, nah, I'm dealing with that kind of situation now. Not with the guy I was talking about earlier, but this is another with another guy. And again, kind of similar situation. His dad just has not been. I mean, this kind of situation where the dad never told him he loved him, never gave him a hug. I gave him his first hug like 2 weeks ago, like real, like come here, you kind of like just kind of grabbed him a couple weeks ago, and you can definitely see that there's definitely been some absenteeism. It's a situation that he just just wishes. In fact, he even told my daughter, it's like, man, I wish I could have your dad as my dad. He actually said that. To her. But yeah, I mean, you can certainly see these situations where if a dad isn't present. Because I do want to address, shout out to our guy R Payne, the OG of the BMU network. Certainly follow Black Men Unfiltered Mondays at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. R Payne, he certainly has this show. He said, as a stepdad, he has to have a relationship with the biological father, which is a non-starter in and of itself. Again, in certain situations, certainly in Peter's situation and other situations I've seen, what if the father is essentially absent? Like there is no real relationship with the child. And in that situation, do you have to then, if he's not involved in the lives of his children, if he's not taking them to games, if he's not being a parent, if he's not splitting parenting time with the mother, in that situation, could you almost consider the mom a single mom in that situation where he doesn't seem to kind of care about the welfare of his children? So, so that I agree generally. I think it's a good idea. But if the father's simply just going to be absent most of the time, I don't know if it's necessarily, required. Again, people may disagree with that or argue that. But certainly we've seen cases where if a father's just simply, just not there. Like I said, I mentioned at the beginning of the show, Shaquille O'Neal, for example, he was essentially raised by his stepdad, who was a military vet and whatnot, and he credits him as his dad versus the biological one. So you do have situations that are like that. Some other comments, certainly from R. Payne. Again, most men who become stepdad is a sexual attraction to the mother that he would risk being a stepdad to another man's kids. I mean, that sexual attraction, that's a real thing. No question about that. Lunatic Librarian. When my wife got pregnant, I immersed myself in learning about pregnancy, childbirth, and child rearing. Good for you. And then he said we fought for a natural birth, no human interventions, wrote the birth plan. So I guess you went the natural route. I guess no epidurals or what have you to, certainly deliver your children. You went old school with that. And then we got our pain again. An absentee dad is one part of the issue. That can be a plus. The key with the active dad is that another man has access to your woman. Yeah, I mean that is certainly something. Again, you kind of have it in a way. I think you said earlier, Pete. It's kind of easy that he's not necessarily around or even wants to be around to the level, especially with the son anyway. So you have a clearer path to have influence and impact on. But again, if it's a situation where he's yeah.
And I have spoken to a lot of people who knew the father, and in easy terms, in my own terms, he's just a asshole. Very simple. The guy's an asshole. He should have been swallowed or broken condom, in my opinion.
Wow.
From the stories from I heard, I know the guy. I don't give a shit about knowing him. Don't need to know. Simple.
Yeah, I mean that definitely, again, that makes it simpler. Although I have seen situations where, again, a dad may not be involved, but somehow that person may get jealous if in fact he sees his woman happy, and that's an issue between the man and the woman. If it ended on the wrong footing, or if there's a lot of hate or spite or whatever, a father may want to try to interject himself into a situation for the simple fact that the woman would be happy. Or same thing with the other way around. If the guy goes into a relationship with another woman, the mother all of a sudden wants to kind of raise ire because someone else found her man attractive, or that was going to treat him better. And for some people with evil intent, they'll just try to mess up something just to mess up something. And if you have kids with someone like that, again, they can make your situation very difficult. And so, so that's something that I've also seen people have, where you just have these spiteful exes that just are not, they don't necessarily want to get back with you. They just don't want to see you happy with somebody else. Because if you're happy with somebody else, then their kids are going to be probably happier with that new situation, or that new stepmom, or that new stepdad, than with you. And then you start feeling certain ways or whatever. So so a lot of this stuff is, it's really can be volatile, again, depending on the person, who may find themselves on the outs from that situation.
And you're right. And here's the other factor too. You might consider this. They have been broken up, whatever, and all of a sudden, because they have kids, like, let's try this one more time, and you get hurt more in the process.
Yeah.
That's not in my situation.
But right.
There are places I've heard and seen with my own eyes, the relationship was going great. All of a sudden, the guy gets dumped, and she's back with the ex. And a few months later, they break up again, and she crawls back to you. Now I'm good.
Yeah.
Simple.
Yeah, you gotta be mindful. Either choose better, or once that door is closed, it's gotta be closed. Fully. But I definitely agree. If the parents are involved, then a healthy co-parenting situation is going to be essential for everybody. For the parents, for the children, certainly is essential. Lunatic Librarian comes in with a long one. Said, I'm 43, and my mother told me to stay away from women with poor decision-making skills, women that blame the world for their problems. Women will bounce from man to man. So that's not bad advice. But again, even when you meet someone, again, a lot of times it's the early conversation. Why did you break up, with your ex? I think those are viable. People say, look, that's my past, or whatever, why you want to know about that. But again, sometimes your past is prologue. And so, if you made decision after decision, so what if situation, Pete, would it have changed things if, let's say, if she had her two kids, you said they're twins, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what if it was by two different fathers? Would that have made a difference in terms of would you date her or not? Or, because, again, that's not so much about the kids. A lot of times that's about the decision making. You decided to have two children. Now, again, you could have been widowed with the one and divorced with the other because he was a bad guy, whatever. A lot of situations. I'm just saying there needs to be conversation. But if she willingly had two kids outside of wedlock intentionally and did not marry the fathers of those children, even me, I would have questions. I'm saying, like I said, my 26-year-old self wasn't looking for any kids, period. But in my 50s, and again, my 40s really is this would probably be a conversation, because I'm 56 now. So I'm not, I'm thinking if I'm going to get with somebody, and again, I'm not one of these guys, I'm not trying to date a 30-year-old. I'm not even really at this point, to be honest. I'm not even trying to date a 40-year-old at this point. 45 and up is kind of my dating range at this point. Again, the manosphere is going to kill me for that. Say, no, get you a young 30-something or 20-something. I'm not with that. I just want to, kind of grow with somebody, I guess, at this point. I'm snipped. I'm not having any more kids, so none of those things are going to be issues for 50 plus. But if you're talking about 40, or 35 or 40, I'm still kind of, I might still want, maybe want a child, especially if I don't have children already, if I'm still kind of, fertile like that, and I want to, have that kind of thing. Those are questions I'm going to ask. Like I said, if I'm 35 or to 40, and I meet you and you're like late 20s, early 30s, and you got kids already, I'm going to ask why. And I'm not necessarily, and those, depending on your answers, some of that stuff might be disqualified. Because, again, it is about the decisions that you make that have these long-term consequences to them. And, again, if I do marry you, then I'm essentially marrying all of you. I'm marrying your family. So like I said, my friend, my mentor, he took it to the nth degree in that, again, all the siblings got wedding rings or family. I wouldn't call them wedding rings, family rings. I wouldn't necessarily take it to that level, but certainly I understand that I'm not just marrying the woman. I'm marrying her history. I'm marrying her family. I'm marrying her, her sickness and in health, for rich or for poor. I'm taking all that on. So I want to know those things. So it's just interesting how the conversation may change depending on where you are in life, in your 20s, your 30s, your 40s, 50 plus. If I, like say, God forbid, if I ever had to start over, obviously I'd be wanting different things than I would have wanted, 30 years ago. But, your thoughts on that.
Okay, so if she had two different baby daddies, yes, I would probably think of it different. I want to know why first. What happened there? And if the answers are something I could get behind that, like maybe the first one just didn't work. They didn't work out for some weird reason, right?
Yeah.
And maybe the second was abusive, physically and verbally, or just one or the other. Okay, now I can get behind you that. But it's going to be a long time, if she's able or not able to have kids, that's going to be a whole different conversation at the time. But the timeline will be a lot longer for me to start earning her trust and the other way around.
Yeah. Although I would say now the abuse thing, that might be a little tricky. Not to say I would run away from that wholesale, but I'm going to ask some questions about what kind of work have you done to kind of get over that? Because that's trauma. That is like PTSD type of trauma when a woman, if you're legit getting physically abused, that is some trauma that needs to be dealt with. Again, I'm going to ask you some questions. What have you done? And I want to hear more than you just went to Jesus and prayed about it. No shout out to, no shade on, people who are, faithful like that or whatever. I am too. But you got to show me that, that this stuff these aren't things that you're carrying with you. So your trauma is something that I think is important in the conversation as well. Our Pain, I know you asked a question about dropping the link. Typically, again, we do this once a month. So in 2 shows from now, we can certainly drop the link. We just want to keep the show to a time. Unless you want to give them the link, unless you want to come up here, what do you want to do?
You could drop it in the link. I want to get the Dr. Time himself, his opinion on this one.
Okay.
I can send it.
Okay. So here's what we're going to do. Now, again, this is respect to our OG, our Pain. I'm going to drop the link in the chat for him. I'm only letting him up for this conversation. If he wants to certainly come up for it, again, we're extending courtesy because, again, we know him. And, certainly we respect our elders here. So it's going in the chat. We're not going to entertain any other voices tonight. But our Pain, if you want to come up and, give us some whiz, certainly from your background and experience, you can certainly go ahead and do that, and we'll accommodate you. But certainly appreciate you being part of the conversation. Oh, just like that, he jumps on board. That was fast. What's going on? You were waiting for. What's going on, partner?
All right.
Okay, now we can't see. We see your nice background graphic or whatever, but we're not seeing you per se.
I don't know what happened. My camera's acting up.
Okay, all right, but we can hear you though. But how you doing, sir?
All right, man. Listen, but I got an echo here. Hold on for a second.
This is why old people and technology don't mix, gentlemen.
Hey, listen. This is a good topic. I didn't know, Pete, you had a girl with some children. Have you ever dated any girls with ladies with children, Mr. Bennett?
Never. No. Like I said, I was never, when I got serious about dating and marriage and things like that, I was very intentional. I was like, I'm not ready to be a dad yet. That's just not what I want to start life with. And like I said, I would start talking to a lady or whatever, but she would always bring up the kid thing, like towards, I'm kind of feeling okay, let's get ready to go out and all that kind of stuff. Oh, by the way, I have a kid. And I'm like, oh jeez. It's like, I'm sorry. It was like the price, like dun 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 dun. It's kind of like at that point, because I like I said, I knew me and what I was looking for, and I just didn't want to go into an instant family situation. I really felt that marital time, just us, was important in determining whether or not I wanted to procreate. If I didn't feel that, then it's much easier to get out. But once kids are involved, that's a problem.
Right. Yeah, I had several different girlfriends that had kids.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They were nice. I liked them. Now I was early on. Certainly before I got married. One lady, she couldn't get over her ex. Right. I mean, she constantly talked about him, and because he left her dirty, but there was still some attraction there. Right. It had to be. So I mean, that didn't take me against her. I just said, well, I was single. I said I wanted to start my own family. I wasn't ready to get married at all anyway. So, but it comes to a point where I think it's unfair for some men to even have any relationships with women who have kids if they're not going to be serious about it.
Yeah.
I think that a guy, and maybe this comes if you're a little older, because that woman, no matter what she says, if she starts to like you, she starts looking at you as somebody coming in to pick up that slack for her family. And if you just want to bust her down and then move on, that's how we leave bitter women in our wake. I just say, listen, if you ain't serious about a woman with kids and you looked at all of the landscape of what it means to be a stepdad, I say don't mess with them at all. Now, if you're a blended family, you got kids of your own, and you're blending the families and stuff, I think that's more palatable because you guys have some common ground.
Right.
But if I had to tell any man, listen, if you don't have any children, don't fool around and be a stepdad. Now, again, it does matter if the dude's not in the picture, right? But if he is in the picture, and he's a real dutiful, active dad, that dude has access to your woman. And what I mean by access, I'm not even just going all the way to the extreme that he can be busting her down every so often.
Right.
But remember, she gave him a kid. There's no greater gift that a woman could give a man than his children. Right? So we could try to poo-poo that, and she could tell you all kinds of horse shit. That guy she went through the death throes to have that guy's kids. There's a bond there that's never going to be broken, no matter what she says. So I'm just saying, you got to be prepared to deal with that. And even if he doesn't try to, fool around and they don't get into that, she don't backslip. He could change her mood with a phone call.
Mm-hmm.
I'll give you, you're going out to dinner, and she gets the call because he has the kids, and something goes down, and they get into an argument the one night that you guys have something planned. He calls her up, this is what's going on. You didn't pay that bill. I didn't pay that bill. And now her mood has changed. Now you got to deal with that shit, right? And I'm just saying, I don't know why, and I'm not talking about listen, in my day, stepdads were a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody was a stepdad and a stepmom.
Well, I even brought up at the beginning of the show, like my favorite comedy, like my favorite TV dad of all time is Mike Brady.
Right.
From the Brady Bunch. I mean, that was just coming in, that was just like, that's, they kind of made that thing, okay, that can work.
I had a stepmother, I was 14 when my father remarried, but, and she was a great woman, man, we were real close. So, so I'm not really downing on that because no matter what we say on these stupid YouTube streets, stepdads and stepmoms are always going to happen. Yeah. They're just always going to happen. It's inevitable. Right. But when we start talking about preferences, I think it's really to tell people to really, really do your vetting before you make that leap. Let me tell you, 65% of women with kids, they want a man with no kids. Why is that? Because they know they don't want no baby mama drama. right? So I mean, so there you go. So, I mean, I didn't want to come up for. I mean, it's a good conversation to have.
Yeah, appreciate you being here. Now, let me ask you before you go, because I asked Peter about. I want to ask you also. When do you think it's a good idea to introduce kids? So let's say in your situation, you're serious. You're not just looking to, just have sex and hit it and quit it. When do you think it's a good idea? Because what I liked about what Peter's doing in this relationship versus other ones is that they dated for several months.
Right.
Before the kids were even introduced, like they met person to person. But what would you say is a good barometer for, okay, you're meeting a lady, you're liking her, to introduce them to the kids? And caveat on that, does it depend on the age of the kids?
Well, I think it depends on the relationship with the woman more than it does the age of the kids. Because I think if you're going to be a stepdad, the truth of the matter, the younger the kids are, the better. Right. So if you become a stepdad and the kids are 2 years old and the other,
they're not going to know.
You're their dad. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But it really is a relationship with you and the woman, right? Because first of all, I believe that a woman ain't your girl until you ask her to be. Mm-hmm. When you're ready to ask that woman to be your one and only girl, leading to some courtship to marriage or something like that, that's probably a good time to do the intros, because now you ask for a commitment from her. She's committed to you. So now it's time for you to, it's time to start to get to know the kids, because you're not just a passerby. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? I think that's when you really committed to the chick. Now, I don't say you can't wait till you're engaged or married. But, so even before I got married, there was a point where I asked my before she was my fiance, I just asked her, "Do you want to be?" I asked her, "Do you want to be my girl?" After we just because I wanted to say it. Mm-hmm. And her answer was, "I thought I already was."
Right.
That was her answer.
Right.
But
that could take place very fast. Right. I mean, she could be your girl after a month. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So again, if she has kids, would you still in that situation, if it's like a month or
whenever that decision takes place, that you guys are serious with, that's when you do.
I got you.
If you're just fooling around, man, and you busting her down and stringing her along, but you never give her the affirmations that she's your one, she shouldn't introduce you to her kid. Now, the problem is that women get enamored with the dude and they forget that. Women forget that with guys, that, if he never asks you to be monogamous or be his girl, some women just skip right over that, because you just like, what I'm saying? Because that's where the men's really affirming the relationship, because he actually asked you about it.
Yeah.
That says, and a lot of times they don't wait for that. That you just you're having sex with her all the time, so she's assuming. So so if I had any. This is what I told my daughters. If a guy ain't asking you to be his girl and be called, the guy's just fooling around. So anyway, that's what I would say. So the age of the kids is secondary to the relationship you have with the woman. Gotcha. That's what I think.
Gotcha. I appreciate it. Appreciate you coming up and sharing your perspective.
You guys having me up for a second.
You always get the OG card in this show. So anytime you got pulling up, we appreciate you being here. All right, brother. You have a good one. All right. Yeah, that was some good stuff right there. Because one thing we didn't touch on was the situation where, again, if both of you have kids, now it seems like from our Payne's perspective, it would be an easier thing if both of you are kind of going into a relationship, except like my mentor did. They both had kids, and there was like an understanding. Because you've been a single parent for some time, he raised his kids single. He had full custody of his sons. So he understood what it meant to be a single parent. She understood what it meant to be a single parent. So they kind of had that in common. Just like I said, just like the Brady Bunch show. Do you think it would have been easier or harder for you if you had kids too? You had two kids, and you guys were dating or whatnot. How much you think that would change things, or how important would it be for the kids to meet and their dynamic and relationship? Hey, do our kids vibe and get along on a certain level or whatnot. How do you think that might have changed the dynamic? Because that is certainly a major factor in some of these blended families. When we say blended, it could truly be that. You bring in two sets of kids together. And I think someone made a comment earlier that if you do that, it's useful if the kids are close in age when you bring a blended family together.
Factor in that. All right. Because they could be in the same age, but they're into different hobbies. They don't get along at all. Or like I've seen, like what they both are in the same hobbies, like say football, for example. One is a Jet fan, and one is an Eagle fan, and they hate each other's teams, or Giants and Eagles, or whatever the case is. So it can go both ways. So now, if I had kids, she had kids, the age wouldn't make a difference. I don't know. I don't know if the age will make a difference, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Them hanging out and seeing each other together under the same roof. Like we do with our dogs right now. They're under the same roof. They're trying to kill each other half fucking times. So we can't leave the dogs by themselves right now.
Oh, really?
But, yeah.
Beagles are usually non-aggressive, so I'm kind of surprised that they're kind of,
it's not the aggressive part is because Paolo's only a few months old, like you remember. Gunner is 12 years old.
Okay, so yeah.
And
get off my lawn.
and they're both males,
right?
And they're both alpha males, so that makes it a little worse. So you have to break them in easily. Kind of, you have to be supervised for a while. But my point is trying to get to is, at first you definitely want to be around, and try the best you can to give them these things they both will talk about and like. Like in my case, it's gaming. Use that. Or they're like ATVs and so on and so on. You know what I'm saying? The age I don't think the age will make a difference as much.
Gotcha.
I think the situation, how you guys got together, is more the situation. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I think it does. Lunatic Libertarian says the nuclear family and extended family have been destroyed by American society. I don't know if it's an American thing or not. It's interesting. I was looking at this before the show. I was just, kind of searching for, information as I usually do. And I found this site. Let me just see if I can bring this up. Share that. Oh, Pete, still with me?
I'm here. I had to take my camera out for 1 minute.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Again, I can hear you. So you got this site, this World Population Review. So they, marry, they have different statistics. So they got this one here on out of wedlock births by country in 2026. And it doesn't cover every country. Some countries you don't have any statistical data on, but it does examine certain countries. So again, if you look to the left, the lighter the color, the less out of wedlock births, all the way up to 90%. And you can certainly see some countries sort of in the dark blue. So the United States, certainly 40% of children born out of wedlock. In Canada, it's 29%. But again, you look at Mexico, 73 points, almost 74%. Ironically, Colombia, 87% of children are born out of wedlock in Colombia. If you look at Chile, 78.1%. Again, most of Europe is over 50%. Germany actually is pretty low, 33%. But again, Norwegian country, 61%. Sweden, 57.4%. I'm just trying to.
Out of curiosity, where is Greece at?
Greece, if I could find it on the map here. I gotta zoom in. Let's zoom in. And I gotta test my. See, now you have me test my geology now because I gotta find Greece. Cyprus.
Next to Turkey.
I just had Turkey. So Turkey, Bulgaria. I don't know if is it this one right here? My I used to be a whiz at maps back in the day.
So we
but
are
I don't know
just,
if they have any data. Like I said, if it's grayed out, it means that they don't have data on the issue.
it's
But
probably have
again,
no data on that means
yeah,
that
Italy, 40%, France again 58.1%. So again, I don't know if I think certainly in a lot of developed nations, these numbers are high. Turkey obviously is a Muslim nation. You have certainly fewer of that. So here you have Israel 8.6%. So certainly in a lot of these European or Western nations, you certainly have much higher rates. Again, UK 47.6%, Ireland 38.4%. Move up a little bit here. What I got? Latvia, Estonia 53.8%, and this one here, Finland 48.8. So you certainly have countries where again, and if you're going to be having all these kids in an out of wedlock situation, I would think it was supposed that people are either choosing to live in relationships that are not married, or if you do marry, it's more than likely going to be a blended situation, unless you marry the person that you had the baby with. I don't think that would count as an out of wedlock birth. If you marry the person, at least I wouldn't think so. You kind of make it legal at that point. So again, most of the a lot of these developed nations, they have pretty high rates. But at the top 6 countries, again, Colombia, Chile, Costa Rica, Mexico, Iceland, 69.4%, Norway, 61.2%. So how you take those stats? Let me see if I can find Greece, because they do have a listing here. Germany, Latvia. Let me see if Greece is in the stat. Yeah, Greece, they don't have metrics on, certainly at this point. But what do you, just off the top of your head, what do you think, Pete? I mean, knowing what you know of Greek culture, do you think, because I know you said one of the earlier shows that we did, I know you said that deletions are pretty high in Greece, like
correct.
Almost like on every corner, there's like a clinic for such a thing.
But yeah, okay, so be it a stepfather or stepmother overseas in Greece, when I was going to Greece, living in Greece, excuse me, it wasn't common. But I'm finding out now it is actually more common than ever.
Mm-hmm.
Now, is it as high as the States? Absolutely not. But it is common. Let's say out of 10, maybe I would say 5 out of 10.
That's more than here. America's 4 out of 10. So if you're saying,
okay, maybe it's 3 out of 10 then.
Okay. Yeah, Canada's around 3 out of 10.
Yeah, so it's a low number because of the religion factor. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Right.
Because obviously we know the religion says you shouldn't divorce, is blah, blah, blah. We know the whole saying.
Right.
So we're not going to get too religious tonight. But I do think it is a factor that. But
yeah.
There are other factors too. Or you every relationship is different. You cannot consider my awesome relationship I'm going through right now, the great relationship I have, versus somebody else who's miserable.
Mm-hmm.
And some people say, I don't want to deal with these kids. I love spending with the damn kids. Even sometimes they drive me crazy up the wall, but that's what kids do, drive you crazy up the wall. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's why you lost
no question about it. No question about it. Now, let me ask you this. In fact, let me just see if I can look this up. I just wanted some statistical data before I ask this question. So I'm asking the question, can you adopt your stepchild? And again, this may differ from state, but let's just say this goes all the way, right? You marry Madam Sparta. You guys are together and whatnot. You continue to grow in your relationship with the stepkids. Do you think it would ever get to a point where you would want to adopt them legally as your own?
So with my son, yes. Because he already mentioned comments about that. So yes, I would say. Now with my daughter, that's a question. I don't know how to answer that because we haven't had that conversation with her yet.
Right. And I was just looking up just some stats. So again, you can, it's like in most states, You can legally adopt your stepchild. This process, known as step-parent adoption, requires you to be legally married to the child's custodial parent. To finalize it, the child, other biological parent must either consent to terminate their parental rights or have their rights legally severed by a court due to abandonment or unfitness. So again, that to me, that creates a situation where, again, if someone wants to be spiteful, right? Again, from what you're saying, this father was mostly an absentee. He didn't really care about the son or what have you. And like I said, you really developed this bond with, with this kid. And, again, you're saying you already had talks already about it moving in this direction. And if that happens, then all of a sudden this father wants to come up and just kind of throw a monkey wrench in it, kind of just giving the middle finger to you, to the ex, to the son. Sometimes even it's like, look, like I said, some people just want to see the world burn, and they just want to see that go through for the simple fact that it would make someone else happy. But you've had those conversations though about possible adoption of the son. That's a big move.
Yeah, and it's funny where the conversation happened because we're chilling in the pool and we're talking about things, and I believe open transparency with the child is number one factor why my relationship works so well. Like the conversation, for example, and she already had the conversation prior of me. Keep that in mind. Then you need to have a couple steps, I believe, and if you agree or disagree, you have the floor after I'm done.
Sure.
Mom and kids need to have that conversation first if they're old enough, obviously.
Right.
Saying, hey, how do you feel Pete calling you, you're the kids? He's kids. He goes, they were cool with it. They loved it, actually. The factor for me was, I'm going to go even further back. Father's Day. I told you the story. I get a text I did not expect to get at least for another a year or two. All right.
Right.
And me and my missus already had a conversation about us, me with the kids. And we really had it feeling like my son is he's going to see me more as a father. And I had a conversation with him and explained things to him. Like he's a little confused with some things. And he has a lot of questions that we don't have the answers to, unfortunately, with all this process, because we're still figuring this out as we go, like any relationship, right?
Sure.
And I explained to him, man, because he's almost 18. I went to him, I'm gonna tell you straight up, any man can lay with a woman and have sex with her, but not every man can be a father. And I think that hit him. So I get a text from my daughter, and it says, "Happy Father's Day. Thank you for everything you do," and from my mom, because making her happy is making us happy. And my response was, like, you will never have to thank me for doing that. This is what I do. This is what a man does.
Right.
And there were some other things I want to keep private, but one thing I will say openly is about family. I went to her, we are family. So you can come to me for anything you want. If you disagree with what I say or agree, that's a different conversation, obviously. But we can have that conversation. Why did you disagree with what I said? Let's talk about it. And it hit her. So fast forward to about 3 weeks ago. No, 4th of July weekend. Was it not 4th of July weekend? Yes, 4th of July weekend. We're chilling in the pool, hanging out. We're enjoying ourselves. So we start talking, and we had a conversation with our son about that, and he was very open about the conversation, and I'm glad about that, to be honest with you. And he mentioned to me he does not want his father's last name. I go, unfortunately, he is still your father. I still want you to have a relationship with a person. And what he replied to me is, I like to have maybe yours or mom's maiden name, or both if I can. We start laughing like we're not Spanish, dude, so we can't do the
Right.
duh in the middle like Spanish people. So
You can, well, if you're gonna do a rename, you can do anything you want.
yeah, but
the artist formerly known as Prince, his was an icon.
I told him to wait till 21 to make that decision.
Mhm.
At least he has a few years to think about it. I don't want him to jump the gun in a month from now when he turns 18. I don't want him to regret it because it is a process. It's not a simple process.
Yeah.
And we know somebody who changed their name. Me and you, King. And guess King's real first name is not King. It's not gonna say I don't embarrass him. But he changed it a few years back to King. And it's a process. It's not like you fill the paperwork, you submit the money. No, it's a process. I don't know the process personally, but I know it's a process.
Right.
That's
And obviously, it'll be easier for him to do than, like I said, when he turns 18, he can do anything he wants. I think certainly under 18, yeah, you need the other father to comply or have the court remove his parental rights. But when he's 18, no one can stop him from doing whatever he wants to do at that time. So, but at the same time, if he turns 18, I don't know if you can legally adopt him either. So it would be a name change, but it wouldn't necessarily be an adoption at
correct.
that point.
I would look at it as adoption personally through my eyes because he's accepting my last name. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Not by paperwork, just the way I feel. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And that's fine. Like I don't need a piece of paper to tell me he's my son. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
I don't need a DNA test to tell me he's my son. I see him as my son, and anybody who wants to challenge that, we can have words on that in my way. Simple as that. I will protect this kid no matter what. Like same way you will put your life in harm's way to protect your girls. Am I correct?
Absolutely.
That's how I feel about these kids. And I roast them. I'm not gonna lie to you guys. I roast both of those guys pretty hard. But it's one. My daughter loves the shit out of that because that's the kind of relationship me and her have. My son is starting to learn how to roast me. He came win with me, and my girl shaking her like, man, we gotta teach on how to roast better. So he got tired of it today. He starts googling how to roast. I'm like, dude, you can't learn that on Google. You gotta learn. You have it or you don't. Simple as that. But my point is trying to get to is, I think the way we did it worked really well for us. Again, anything I'm saying is experience for me. Please don't take it as gospel. Whoever's watching this.
Yeah. This is definitely not. We're definitely not an advice show. This is, like I said, this is just us having transparent conversation about the actual lives that we live. So again, nothing here is like prescriptive. It's just we just having a conversation. You guys are certainly free to share your experiences in the chat. In terms of
like, I know couples that were completely different than mine. They had kids on both sides and it worked out great for them. All of them are living on the same roof, happy family.
Mm-hmm.
And I was same token. Two people had kids. They got all the kids moved in, and none of the kids get along. They want to kill each other half the times.
Mm-hmm.
So this can go either way. My advice can backfire somebody.
Yeah.
I think my way, how I did things, worked.
Yeah.
For example, she had the conversation with our son first to see how he felt. Then he didn't. Then he had that. The day I realized he's seeming like a father was last weekend. They use an app called Life 360. I don't know if you're familiar with that, Paul.
I've heard of the name, but I don't know if it's the right context here. It could be another software or something.
Android version of showing your location, pretty much.
Okay.
So I know how fast he's driving, where he's going, when he gets home, all that stuff. It wasn't my idea to get me on that app. It wasn't even my lady's idea. He goes around, looks at, my girl goes, and me, we're middle making dinner. She goes, why isn't Pete on Life 360? I go, I have it on my phone. I was going to play with it a little bit for other reasons to see how I can, she's not really good. She's not a tech person. So she just likes texting, calling, Facebook. That's it. Very simple stuff. She uses her phone. And she goes to me, I don't know. And like, we both thought about it. And so, speaking of the devil who could just popped his head in. And he goes to me. He goes, I want to add Pete. And go like, his mom goes, yeah, go for it. I have no problem. She looked at me, you good with it? I'm straight with it. She goes, I haven't set it up. So I had it on my phone, but I never set it up. Again, I was going to play with it a little bit to explain to her some features of it. So he adds me, but he doesn't add me as Pete. What do you think the young man add me as?
What?
What title do you think he put me on?
Oh, he said dad?
Bingo.
Wow.
And I was taken back. when I say it's a emotional roller coaster in a good way, I had to remove myself from it and take a breath of fresh air. And I'm like trying to process this. She came out, she grabbed a cigarette. She gets me one. She goes, "Are you good?" And I'm like, "Yeah." I'm like, she look at me, "You're a fucking mush." And like, she knows how I am with them. You know what I'm saying? I'm all in, Paul. You know me for a couple years now. I'm
Yeah,
all
that
in,
you
all
are.
in. Yes.
Yeah.
But also, how my loyalty is to my friends and family and loved ones.
Yeah.
And for our viewers, you want to explain that to them?
It is what it is. I mean, he's sometimes, I perceive maybe a bit more cautiously than he does, but he kind of goes all in. Sometimes, I have the feeling I want to pull him back a little bit, but that's just who he is. He loves hard. If you're his friend, he's like a dog. He's just like a loyal dog on you. I mean, so again, that's a good thing. I mean, it's good when you have people like that in your life, the right type of people. But sometimes they can get you into trouble. Also, sometimes he can kind of run into a burning building. Sometimes too. So sometimes I try to, and I hope you appreciate, like when I just talk to you sometimes to just say, "Hey, pull it back," or "You sure about this," or what have you. Like I said, I tend to play a little bit more cautiously than he does. But yeah, he whether it be his friends or whatnot, he gives sometimes beyond his means, sometimes, and but I'm always trying to make sure he's got at least a perspective. He's going to do what he's going to do, but I just want to make sure that he has the right perspective when he does so.
And I respect what you're doing, Paul. And like I always did, I always told you that too. And you need more friends to kind of ground you sometimes too.
Mm-hmm.
And like you just said, I'm like a dog, and I think that's the best example of my personality, because I'm all in. Like I said, I will protect the people I love, bite their heads, or I can be the sweetest person in the world. There is no middle ground with me. And that's the thing my girl realized that really fast. Once you have my loyalty, I got you. You know what I'm saying?
Right. But let me ask you that, because there's one thing I've said in the past, that some of the best fathers I know didn't necessarily have the best relationships with their father if they didn't even have a father at all. I know your father wasn't the loving, "Hey, let's have a conversation" type of person. Where do you think that came from? Because my father wasn't necessarily, only when my father was inebriated did he ever say he loved me. So that's a different thing. But I just find that, the two of us, certainly in my case with my kids and what you're experiencing now, I've seen so many folks who had bad relationships with their dads, but they just decided that they wanted to do something different and break the cycle.
Funny.
Yeah.
It's very funny you mention this, because I literally had this conversation with Mom today when I got home.
Mm-hmm.
So me and the missus got home, I think she went to the kitchen and washed her hands. She was in the room, but in the side of the room, if that makes sense. Remember, I live in an apartment, so everything's like one big goddamn fucking room in this place.
Right.
So ours was speaking Greek and she doesn't understand. And she always asks, "How's the kids?" and all this stuff. How's your time? He goes, "We were talking about me, my son." And she goes, "You know where you get that from, right?" You go, "Look, from where?" "From your father." I'm like, "Huh?" My father wasn't in the picture. Like, that's the point. She goes, "You're doing the opposite what your father did. You're spending time. You are engaging them. You're doing game night. You're making sure they're okay. Before this relationship, did you ever expect a Greek Spartan to go to a fucking rodeo, bro?" Fuck you.
Well, now I shouldn't say. I know I won't say that, because again, you've said, how many times have you said you're not your typical Greek guy? You're into stuff that most Greeks aren't into. So again, the rodeo wouldn't be, that would just add to the list of things that's just different. So no, I'm not surprised by that.
So I really wanted to do the rodeo because one, I never experienced it, and two, for my son, because he's really into the cowboy stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And like, horses is his passion. He loves horses. He loves riding them. He likes training them. He worked at a ranch. He does all that stuff. He's one-on-one cowboy kid. You know what I'm saying? So mom goes to me, you got it because you're doing the opposite of what your father did. Your father only wanted to watch a movie, and it was his choice of movie, not yours always.
Right.
She's 100% right. So at least, you know how they say the apple doesn't fall far from the tree?
Right.
This time the apple fell way too far from the tree for a good reason.
Right. You're doing everything the opposite. But again, you're not alone in that. Again, I can't tell you how many guys who had similar situations, not the greatest fathers, but they just decided to be more than what their fathers are. And some of this is an immigrant mentality. I got friends from Haiti. Their father, I knew their father. Again, not a engaging figure whatsoever. Wasn't the nurturing kind. And I guess maybe it's just a generational thing. Maybe us Gen X and older millennials, we just made some decisions that we weren't going to do it as was done in the past. Like I said, maybe that's one of the reasons why I'm not a big fan of corporal punishment. That's why I wanted to have more understanding, more communication. Again, I just think that Gen X, or at least younger Gen X, I wouldn't say that, there's older Gen X or the younger ones, or like I said, the older millennials, we just saw the world differently. If you grew up in the 80s and the 90s, you just wanted something different. And I'm seeing it in you in that you're giving, and again, for this kid whose father was the way he is, I mean, you're filling in. It's like, there's no handbook for this, right? There's no handbook for being a parent. Every kid's going to be different, but you seem to be filling a role that is certainly needed for this kid. And I just want to just acknowledge that, because I've seen that over and over, and people, especially in this YouTube space, this algorithm or whatnot, and guys want to say, well, I never had a dad, and that's why you are the way they are. But I know I lost count of how many guys I know.
I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
How this kid needed this. His father has never said to him he's proud of him. He never said to him he loved him. So they're on vacation. I text him because I know some shit went down. And I towards the end of my conversation, I went to him, listen, shit happens in life, but remember one thing. I am proud of you. He looked at a text, went to my girl, goes, what is he saying about that? He goes, well, you have changed so much since Pete got in your life.
Mm-hmm.
In the good. So he kind of took him back a little bit, in a good way, of course. And sometimes you need those grounding moments for the child, I believe.
Yeah.
And the other part is we're just texting back and forth. He's asking 100 questions like he always does. And again, nothing wrong with that. And towards the end of the conversation, I was about to go to bed. I go, listen, I need to go to bed. I got work the next day early, but I'll talk to you tomorrow. Good night, and I love you. Didn't think anything of it, just naturally. That was the first time he had a male figure telling me he loves him.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that hit him hard.
Yeah.
Sometimes if you just grab the kid, give him a hug, or just saying you love him, it can go a long way.
Yeah, like I said, that the moment I had with this kid, well, I couldn't call him a kid. He's 26, but he's had a like I said, a rough go. He's smart in a lot of ways, but he's just lacking some things. And this goes to that conversation we were talking about. If someone wants to marry my daughter or not, like him, I would say no. It's not out of that I have any angst or any issues with him. Like I said, I feel for the kid. And if possible, I want to, be able to help the kid, mentor, whatever he needs, I'd like to be there for him. But as I said, I think if you're going to marry someone, I think you need to be in a position to do so. You need to be some maturity, and ultimately you need to start doing things for yourself. So he's got, just like, your son that you're dealing with, there's some growing up that needs to be done. There's some maturing that needs to take place for him before he's ready to go to that level of relationship, with another person. And so again, it's not he's no good or whatever. No, I see a lot of good in this kid. This kid was very smart. He had a full ride scholarship to a university, but because of the personal issues and things like that, he couldn't take it on. So, so yeah, there's a lot in him, but no one's ever poured into this kid. So I may have to get like you, and just hearing what you've been sharing tonight, I may have to do that. Not to say that, okay, at this point, I'm not thinking, oh, this is my future son-in-law. I'm not thinking that. I'm thinking this kid simply just needs a positive male figure in his life. And if I'm, I believe nothing happens for, without any reason. I think, why is this kid here? Or why is he, coming around if I could be of influence in some way? Because initially he was intimidated by me, to be honest. Like my daughter would say, like, he does not, he's just, he just thinks that you're just very, but really when we had a conversation, because he thought I just had everything together. It's like, your dad is just so up here, and my daughter told him, like, he wasn't always like that. He had a background that wasn't too different from yours. And I think I've shared enough in this space about my background to know that, hey, I didn't grow up easy. I didn't have it hard. I had a difficult childhood with both parents. And so when we had that conversation, I was kind of, sharing it with him. Like, look, I kind of, in a lot of ways, I kind of see myself in him. Maybe, certainly not to the degree where he is, but enough to where I kind of see it. And I kind of see what's kind of needed. So how am I just going to not let, this kid come into my presence and be like, to help him?
So I said something to my lady, and she's literally just lost and broke down. It doesn't matter what happens between me and her. Let's say things great for now, but let's say we went our separate ways for whatever reason, for argument's sakes. That's not going to happen. I went to her for, I don't see that happening because of how well the relationship is going. But let's say for argument's sake, we do, something happens, right? That young man is always going to be my son from this point on. I went to her. And she just lost it right there. And she goes, nobody has said anything like that for him.
Yeah.
Nobody took him under his wing. And he's not a bad kid. Like I said, he's a sweet kid.
Yeah.
Give you the shirt off his back. And he will. He just has to build a little thicker skin over time. And he didn't have a father to teach that. Like in your case, Paul, I wouldn't see it as a father figure. I saw it as a mentorship more.
Yeah, like I said, whatever I can be to him, but this is a human being. I mean, let's, gray area and everything aside, I know we're talking about stepdads or whatnot. There's human beings, right? We're older. We're over 40 years old. And we've been blessed more than most. And there are young people out there that need someone, whatever title you want to put on it, mentor, stepdad, whatever it is. For a lot of you guys out here, you guys are Gen X and whatnot and all that, people or boomers or whatever it is, or older millennials. You have something that you can give to somebody who's in your orbit. I'm not saying go out there and say, hey, I want to sign up and be this. There's people who you know. And if you have something to give, if you have something to offer, even if it's just, like I said, when I hugged him, he kind of like broke down. Like he fell into me. You know what I mean? He's not very he was like me. In fact, I weighed less. He almost dropped his jaw. I asked him how much he weighed. He said he weighed about 158 pounds. I told him, actually like 161, he told me. And we're about the same height, right? I told him when I graduated college, I was 147 pounds. When I got married, I was 158. So I was lighter than him, skinnier than him when I got married. And again, he just like, because he sees me, I guess this, hulking figure, but he just saw me as, it's like, man, this guy's like The Rock. He's jacked. He's whatever. It's like, no, I was you. And there's people like that are out there that need that kind of mentorship, that kind of tutoring, that kind of just hug them. And a lot of us are just kind of sitting, blaming that generation. Oh, that's his father's problem. He should have, saying all these things, but we have so much to give. And like I said, even more just from hearing what you're saying, it's like, yeah, I may reach out a little bit more. Like I said, initially, it was kind of like he would come in, I would shake hands. He wouldn't even look at me.
Oh, God, that bad?
Yeah. Like I said, but again, my daughter was saying he's scared to death of me. Look at you. He sees the weights downstairs. He sees the dungeon. He sees, oh my gosh, this guy's going to, this guy will break me in half.
He's probably snapping again. I never seen you like that. So but I think if you do mentor him over time, you're going to feel better for yourself. I'll be honest.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's like I said, it's not an unwillingness, right? Because I kind of,
let's say your daughter and him went their own separate ways, whatever, and you continue, mentor him after the relationship ended. It only benefits you and makes you a better person in a day.
Yeah. I mean, even with some of my other Gen X friends, I kind of raised the conversation. Like when we were younger, when we were in college, there was so much activism and things we were doing for the community, right? And then a lot of times we get into our own families, we kind of get into our own silos and, our spaces and whatnot, and we kind of forget there's still work to be done. Like the work should not have ended. I was a member of, again, 100 Black Men of Rutgers University, not affiliated with 100 Black Men Incorporated. I got to put that asterisk on there because they get sensitive about that. But the idea here is that, again, we were about the empowerment of young Black men. Where here's a young Black man that's in front of me who I may have some influence with. And if that opportunity to present itself, regardless if he goes to the next level with my daughter or not, to your point, should I not offer that to him? And so, so I'm going to be more, like I said, it was like a melting of the ice because, he was so, the intimidation and whatnot. Then we kind of had our talk because him and my daughter, they were kind of going, had a little spat or whatever. And I was then because really the initial part of the conversation, I was going to check him a little bit. It's like, look, however you and my daughter go, that's one thing. But do understand, my daughter's on a mission. She's in med school. She's going back in August, and I can't have you. If you're going to be here, then be here. If you're not, then leave her alone. Because I can't have this roller coaster with her when she's trying to get through med school. So it was a conversation about checking him to make sure, hey, you're in or out. As a friend or whatever you want to call this relationship is. And then that's when we kind of had there was the transparency, there was the opening up and whatnot. And I think there was a lot of things that were broken down. Now I think, maybe it's the time to maybe start building something. And we'll see what happens. But again, I'm just dealing with the individual because as I said before, I don't care. And I think it's the wrong intention when you try to man up, so to speak, to get a woman. I don't think that should be your reason. Yeah, I got to do better because I want to be with her. I think that's a lousy reason. You should want to do it for yourself. To be a man is to understand there's a certain level of independence that you must desire in yourself. There's a drive, there's an accountability to yourself. You owe it to yourself for your life and to take ownership over things that you can control in your life. That is a man to me. And if you didn't get it from your dad or what have you, I feel for that. And like I said, if I can kind of help you with that, then I will. But you need that for you. You need to start feeling good about yourself. You need to develop that, what I call that swag. It took me years to develop this sort of swag that I have. And you need that too, but you need to start winning. You need to start putting some things together. And so, so I'm definitely inspired, certainly by what you've been talking about tonight, to maybe go the next level and see if he takes it. And then see what we can build from there. But there's no attachments. It's about him and whether or not if he wants to do better. And if I can help him in that process, then I will do so. So again, thank you certainly for sharing your story tonight. There was one thing I did want to go. We might have to have a different show on this. Mm-hmm. But I find it interesting that the more you talked about, again, Madam Sparta, You guys seem different in a lot of ways. It's like she's a little bit country and you're a little bit rock and roll. So I'm just saying that was see, I'm showing my age again because that was a Donnie and Marie reference for you guys in the chat. If you remember the Donnie and Marie show, that was one of their routines. I'm a little bit country and I'm a little bit rock and roll.
Actually, it is a song called "She's a Little Country" by Luke Brown.
Yeah. So again, you have that pairing. So you guys seem to be a bit of an odd couple, so to speak, in terms of just your interests and whatnot. And like I said, she's rodeoing and cowboys and things like that. You're anime and sci-fi and things of that nature or whatever. So again, a bit more about, maybe we can talk about that in another episode, about, again, people with uncommon interests, that how you guys can make it work. Because there are people, it's like, yeah, if you don't have the same interests or whatnot, how you get together, whatever. They do say sometimes opposites attract, and I'm not calling you guys opposites. Because, again, there might be some things you connect on. Maybe we could talk about it in another show. In fact, we even talked about this earlier. We talked about if someone checks off, let's say you got 10 checkpoints, right? If someone checks off 8 of those 10 or 7 of those 10, could you rock with that? Could you live with that? Maybe we can explore. We might have had that conversation a couple years ago, but maybe we can kind of bring that up, but maybe bring it up in a context that talks about your relationship and how this has been able to blossom to where it is now. But there definitely seems to be a lot of trust. There definitely seems to be a lot of transparency and just an openness to an acceptance, which I think are certainly the keys to relationship, not necessarily your interests. But maybe we can chop that up maybe even next week in another show, and we can just continue the conversation around those lines. But I'm just looking at the time where we're kind of at time, so we can kind of get into our final thoughts, I think, at this point. But I think this has been an engaging conversation, and I hope you guys certainly in the chat. Braxton, you're always showing up late to the party, man. So definitely watch us, check us out on the replay tomorrow. But certainly always appreciate you showing up here, certainly tonight. But we can certainly get into final thoughts right now. So Pete, first of all, I'll kind of start out since you're the it's almost like an interview tonight. But I just want to again thank you for sharing. Certainly the relationship that you have and talking about it again, have you built and cultivated over time. And I hope it goes all the way. I really, my prayer for you is that you guys take this to the max. I think I lost you. Bring it back.
Yeah.
That you take it to the max, that you guys go all the way, and that, again, this blended family, bringing you into it, that's going to be beneficial to everyone involved. Everyone will be blessed by it. And that's my prayer for you, certainly, as my brother. And I appreciate you being open and transparent about that. So I'll turn it over to you to close us out tonight.
If you get a chance to be an impact in a young woman or man's life, do it, because you're going to feel bad for yourself, because that is an experience you cannot get back or pay for or anything like that. Family, you can build a family from ground up, but you cannot build experiences. So that's how I want to leave it to.
Gotcha. Appreciate you guys being here tonight. Again, make sure you hit the like button, certainly as you leave the show tonight, both here. Hop over to Sparta HQ Network. Show some love over there also. We're very close to monetization, so also consider becoming a member of Sparta HQ Network. We changed our lineup a little bit. If you guys were looking for us on certain days, like Friday nights or Saturday nights and whatnot, we moved. So all of our programming essentially Sunday through Thursday. And certainly we kind of made things to kind of free up our weekends a little bit. So again, the schedule of things have been, certainly being updated. But again, if you hit the like button and subscribe and follow, and get the alerts, you'll know when certain programs that are coming up. But obviously, we have the Gravy on Sunday. We got Wrestle Talk on Mondays. We got the Spartan Arena on Tuesdays. We got the Hangout, which used to be on Saturdays, which is now on Wednesday. And then certainly myself and the Coach Ferg, we're certainly on Next Gen Training Thursday nights. Again, that's happening on the Sparta HQ Network. So again, different flavors of everything for different shows. Obviously, Black Men Unfiltered Network. Probably the next time you'll see me here is Wednesday night. So I do double duty on Wednesday nights. I do the sports show, one-on-one sports show here, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I may be away this week because again I got to travel for work, so I may or may not be on this week for the show. But certainly, consider that the content on both channels. Again, we got my guy Arpain, who was here earlier. He's here on Monday nights. So, definitely check him out Monday night, 7 p.m. here on the network. Got the Barbershop on Friday. You got I forget what they call the show. It used to be Talk That Talk Tuesday. But, so they got the big show on Tuesday nights here on the Black Men Unfiltered Network as well. So plenty of content to go around. Like each channel, follow, and find the content that works best for you. But, certainly for myself, Mr. Bennett, and he is Sparta. And again, I'm Mr. Bennett. This is the Gray Area. You guys certainly enjoy the rest of your week. Take care. God bless. We'll see you next time. Good night.